Stocks give up early gains as investors remain wary of US President Donald Trump's flip-flop on China tariffs and Fed's Jerome Powell decision. IT, autos and realty gain, but consumer durables, energy and financials drag. HCL Technologies climbs despite a soft and mostly in-line quarter on the back of a strong deal win and an all-time high pipeline. Expectations of easing tariff tensions also fuel a rally in IT stocks. AU Small Finance Bank CEO Sanjay Agarwal says collections against microloans in Karnataka improved to 98% in March from 95% in January, giving hope that the worst for microfinance stress may be behind. Havells chairman Anil Rai Gupta says demand in rural and semi-urban areas is coming back and premiumization is a trend witnessed not just in urban areas but in rural areas too. Electric two-wheeler maker Ather Energy is set to launch its IPO, the first main board issue this fiscal, on April 28th. The offer comprises a fresh issue of about 2,600 crore rupees and an offer for sale by the promoters and early investors. Hello, good afternoon. You're tuned into Business Lunch, coming live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Winnie Motiwala, and thank you so much for tuning in, as always. A look at the markets, right? Opened up on a strong footing. Then we saw the fall coming in. Market dipped and was almost in the red side as well. But then we saw recovery coming back. As of now, the Nifty is recovered from the day's lowest point is what we're seeing. And yes, managing to hold on to almost 3/10 to 4/10% of gain. 24,256 is what the Nifty is trading at. Contributors, look at it clearly on the screen, right? Tech names, IT names, that's the one that is pulling up the markets. Infosys, HCLTech, TCS, all among the top contributors for the Nifty 50, while drags coming in from the private banking side, HDFC Bank, Kotak, SBI also. So banking is not doing well in today's trading session. So in terms of IT sector, top sectoral gainer, bank is a top sectoral loser, almost around that, down almost 0.5% in today's trading session, and underperformance coming in from the banking side. IT, 4% gain is what it's holding on to. HCLTech reported its numbers yesterday, in-line numbers, but still managing to hold on to some bit of a gain on that front. Mid-cap and small-cap, let's look at that. Now, Nifty mid-cap recovered from the day's lowest point as of now. We're seeing a bit of an outperformance versus the benchmark indices. On the other hand, we're seeing Nifty small cap, which is still seeing some bit of an underperformance versus the benchmark indices, just managing to hold on to some bit of a green as of now. So flip-flopping between the red and the green is what we're seeing as of now for the Nifty small cap. But that's how the market setup is looking like. Recovered from the day's lowest point. But the next couple of hours, where it's going to be headed is important to watch out for and what we're going to be sustaining in today's trading session. But let's move on to the latest update that we have coming in, and on the domestic front. And this is a tragic incident. At least 26 civilians, including 2 foreigners, were killed in a terror attack in Pahalgam in Jammu and Kashmir last evening. Now, the Pakistan-based Resistance Front has claimed responsibility for the attack, which was the deadliest in the region since 2019 Pulwama attacks. Following the attacks, Prime Minister Narendra Modi cut short his visit to Saudi Arabia to return to India, and the Cabinet Committee on Security is set to meet to decide the next course of action. Meanwhile, Home Minister Amit Shah reached Srinagar after the attacks to take stock of the situation and paid respect to those who lost their lives. He also visited the site of the terror attack earlier today. And for more updates, we have Ishan Vani, who's joining in with us to give us the updates from the attack site in Pahalgam.
The visuals behind me might look pleasing to your eyes. There are ice-covered mountains, snow peaks, and the beautiful valley of Baisaran. But it is not usual that we can trek to this place and to report any news story. It is not like any other day, but today there has been a carnage which has unfolded. Yesterday, 26 tourists were killed point blank and their religions were asked, but this beautiful place became a witness to that carnage which unfolded yesterday. And now, multiple security agencies behind me are investigating it. We are among the first few channels to reach inside this particular Baisaran Valley and to report to you what the scene must have been like. The visuals might look pleasing to you, but really, those who were here yesterday would know that what this name would mean to them forever. People will have memories, and really shocking ones, and also have trauma of seeing their loved ones being shot point blank by terrorists who opened fire at them indiscriminately and killed them. And then it was a hard trek down. Even the best of the best cannot go up very easily in this particular circumstance. But this is Pahalgam, where yesterday a massive carnage took place. 26% losing their lives. One of them is also a local Muslim, but many others are also injured. And from different places and states, these people came to enjoy Kashmir, but they came here to lose their life. There are chappals, shoes, and other stuff that they left behind without picking them up, and in panic they ran away. The investigation agencies are here. The police, the other teams are also deployed in these jungles to trap them down who killed them. But yes, it's going to be a while till the things come to calm, and then we have to see what kind of response does follow from the government. For CNN News 18 in Pahalgam, Ishan Wani for CNN News 18.
And following the incident, several global leaders reacted to the terror attack and shared their support. US President Donald Trump plans to speak with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to express his heartfelt condolences. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said that India had the full support of the United States. US Vice President J.D. Vance, who is on the 3-day visit in India with his family, also condemned the attack on social media platform X. Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi through the Russian embassy and expressed grief over the brutal crime and said it had no justification. Italy's Prime Minister also expressed closeness to the families affected and showed support for the government and all the Indian people. And now the aviation regulator has also issued an advisory to the airlines to increase flights from Srinagar to various parts of India following the attack. Madhya is here to give us more details on this one. Madhya, take it over.
It's peak summer and Jammu and Kashmir is a favorite destination among tourists. So naturally, an attack on tourists is going to create panic and people would want to return. So keeping that situation in mind, all airlines, including Indigo, Air India Express, have issued advisories to passengers, and they have also offered to waive off the rescheduling fees if passengers who are waiting in Kashmir and wanting to reschedule their ticket to a later date, or in other parts of the country wanting to travel to Kashmir or Srinagar, the cancellation charges have been waived off, and passengers will receive full refund if their tickets, if they cancel their tickets. Besides that, passengers will also be able to cancel the tickets, as I said, and part of a broader effort to ease disruptions as demand soars. The Director General of Civil Aviation has issued an urgent advisory to all carriers asking them to increase the number of flights out of Srinagar to key destinations across the country. DGCA said there has been an unexpected spike in tourist traffic, mainly now looking to return home. Meanwhile, Aviation Minister K. Ram Mohan Naidu has held an emergency meeting with airline executives. A strong warning was issued against surge pricing, with airlines told to maintain regular fare levels to help ease congestion. 4 special flights have been scheduled from Srinagar, 2 to Delhi and 2 to Mumbai, with additional flights kept on standby. We don't have a number yet on the cancellations, but we're speaking with hotels and tour operators to find out more, and we'll keep getting you regular updates.
Absolutely, Madhya. Thank you so much for that. But this is the latest update that we have coming in, and a lot more flights could be expected coming out of Srinagar as well. That's the call that's been taken so far. Thank you so much for that. But on that note, we're going to step into a very short break. After the break, we'll bring you more updates as US President Donald Trump tones down his trade rhetoric against China and also says he has no plans to get rid of Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. More on the story after the break. Welcome back to Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. Now, Wall Street futures, they have spiked, and this has come in after US President Donald Trump, when he was asked about his plans to fire Chairman Jerome Powell, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, said that there was no such intention to do so. And although he did say that this would be a good time to lower interest rates, listen in to what more he had to say.
None whatsoever. Never did. The press runs away with things. No, I have no intention of firing him. I would like to see him be a little more active in terms of his idea to lower interest rates. This is a perfect time to lower interest rates. If he doesn't, is it the end? No, it's not. But it would be good timing. It could have taken place earlier. But no, I have no intention to fire him.
On that note, let's also listen in to the former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan and what he has to say on Fed's independence and impact on the markets.
Don't think both what the Fed chairman said and what Mr. Trump said today suggest that the Fed is in any danger of having to cave to presidential power. So that seems like good news both for financial markets and for the United States. I think on the issue of what will the Fed do, I think Chair Powell made it very clear that it was really focused on its dual mandate, which is growth and inflation. Yes, if growth tanks, it will come to the rescue. That's part of its mandate. And yes, if inflation really goes up, it will keep rates at the appropriate level. The key question is what happens if both happen at the same time? Growth tanks and at the same time, inflation is persistent. And there the chair said, look, it really depends on which is more important, where we are further away from the target at that point, and we will focus on that. Here's an independent authority doing what they need to do on monetary policy. And if the economy slows down considerably, well, there's a finger he can point to at the Fed and say, well, they're partly responsible. I think if he, in a sense, takes responsibility for the Fed, which I think is going to be very, very hard, even if he does manage to find a way to fire Chairman Powell, which I think, again, is off the cards. But if that did happen, I think it would be a problem for the presidency because you own the entire economy at that point. There's no one to blame.
And moving on, Treasury Secretary Scott Besson says that he expects there will be a de-escalation in President Donald Trump's trade war with China in the near future. CNBC's Iman Javers is getting us the latest updates and details on Scott Besson's comments.
What the Treasury Secretary said was no one thinks the current status quo is sustainable at 145 and 125% in terms of the relationship with tariffs with China. He says, so I would posit that over the very near future, there will be de-escalation. And I think that should give the world, the markets, a sigh of relief. He also goes on to say, I do say China is going to be a slog in terms of the negotiations because that engagement started. I would not yet. But I think, again, neither side thinks the status quo is sustainable, but I've said quite a bit. So what Besson is saying here is that neither the United States nor the Chinese side thinks that the trade relationship is sustainable between the two countries. And he also says here that he views this ultimately as an embargo between the two countries, that it's ultimately going to have to lead to some kind of negotiation. And he talks about the idea of rebalancing the two nations' trade relationship together. He says they have stifled the consumer economy and favored manufacturing. We want to increase manufacturing. The identity of that would be less consumption. And if somehow I could see a Ray Dalio essay on this like a big, beautiful rebalancing, if we walk out the door of negotiations and sign something in 2 or 3 years that looked like that, I would think that it's a huge win. And then the trade practices, the goal of that is not that hard a break. We want to stay engaged, but it's going to be more fair. So that's a summary, again, from a person who was in the room of exactly what the Treasury Secretary told that audience at the JP Morgan event yesterday.
And following Scott Besson's comments, US President Donald Trump said that he won't play hardball with China on trade and that US tariff on China will be nowhere near the 145% his administration had previously discussed. Listen in to what more he had to say.
145% is very high. and it won't be that high. It's not going to be that high. It got up to there. We were talking about fentanyl, where, various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high.
And what level do you think it'll come down to if you haven't?
It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero. It used to be zero. We were just destroyed. China was taking us for a ride, and just not going to have. It's not going to happen. We're going to be very good to China. Have a great relationship with President Xi, but they would make billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, and they would build their military out of the United States and what they made. So that won't happen. But they're going to do very well, and I think they're going to be happy, and I think we're going to live together very happily and ideally work together.
And moving on, let's talk about Tesla, because Tesla's disappointing run with earnings continued in the first 3 months of 2025. Earnings per shares came in well below what the street expectation was, while the net profit fell over 71% from last year in Jan to March quarter. Meanwhile, Tesla's CFO, Vaibhav Taneja, in the earnings call has said that the company finds India a hard market. He says, and I quote, "We have been working on getting into India. India is a hard market. Any car which we send is subject to 70% tariff plus about a 30% luxury tax, which makes the car more expensive than what it already is." End of quote. And moving on, a Bloomberg report also suggests that India is looking at cutting tariffs on high-end motorcycles like those produced by Harley-Davidson to zero. There is also no certainty on whether this offer will be a part of the final US-India trade pact, something which depends on the tenor of the talks that go on. And moving on, former Indian ambassador to the United States, Mira Shankar, also commented on United States' intention with regards to trade with India. Listen into what she had to say.
It's not looking really, talks about reciprocal trade, but it's not looking at reciprocity in terms of trade. It's looking at pushing unilateral advantage. And that is something that India will have to consider very carefully, because in the process of trying to manage the Trump administration's shift in trade policy, I think India cannot open up sectors which are problematic, like agriculture across the board.
Okay, on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break for now. And after the break, we'll come back. The International Monetary Fund has actually cut the global growth targets following tariffs and trade uncertainties. Details on this after the break, so stay tuned in. Welcome back to Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. Now, the International Monetary Fund has cut its global growth forecast for 2025 by 30 basis points to 2.8%, and this is due to the uncertainty created by Trump's tariffs. The IMF has downgraded the forecast for most major economies, including United States, China, as well as India. However, it expects India to be relatively stable thanks to the private consumption. Ritu Singh is joining in with us and giving us here right now more details in terms of the IMF outlook, what is there and what are the details. Ritu?
The IMF has downgraded its growth forecast for nearly all countries, citing a sharp escalation in trade tensions, which has triggered unprecedented policy uncertainty. Now, in response, it has presented a range of forecasts under different scenarios. Under the reference forecast, which is based on data up to the 4th of April, global growth is projected to fall steeply to 2.8% this year and 3% next year, marking a cumulative downgrade of 80 basis points from the January update and well below the historical average of 3.7%. The pre-April 2nd forecast pegs global growth at 3.2% for both years, while the post-April 9th model-based forecast aligns with the reference scenario largely. Now, for advanced economies, growth is seen at 1.4% this year, with a steep 90 basis point cut in the US forecast compared to the January update. Emerging markets and developing economies are projected to grow at 3.7% this year, which is also down 50 basis points from the previous estimate. Now, IMF has also cut India's FY26 growth outlook by 30 basis points to 6.2% and for FY27 by 20 basis points to 6.3%. But it says India's outlook is relatively more stable, supported by private consumption, particularly in rural areas, and the downgrade is on account of higher levels of trade tensions and global uncertainty. The IMF has also revised down its projection for global trade growth by 1.5 percentage points this year, with a slight recovery penciled in next year, while global inflation is expected to ease more gradually than earlier estimated. Now, IMF warns that downside risks dominate this outlook, from worsening trade frictions, financial volatility, to rising long-term interest rates, although upside possibilities include AI-led growth engine, next-gen trade agreements, and so on. And the IMF has called for urgent international cooperation to de-escalate trade tensions and safeguard global growth.
Thank you so much for that, Ritu. But moving on, and in an exclusive interview with CNBC, ECB's President Christine Lagarde commented on the initial shocks faced by Europe following the tariff imposition, the inflation trajectory of the EU bloc, and IMF's recent inflation and growth outlook as well. Listen in to what she had to say.
Tariff. Number two, important as well, is the whole defense momentum that is taking up in Europe, and which has led, in particular, Germany to increase significantly its commitment. And number three, and this is really a result of the tariff announcements and subsequent developments, structural reforms, which Europe had been talking about, which had been described in various reports, which Europe is now saying, OK, now it's time, and it's Europe's hour to actually do the things that have to be done. So it obviously has an impact. Some of it positive, some of it negative. I think on the growth front,
sure,
we've always said that it would be a lose-lose, and we're seeing it. Monetary policy decisions are driven by the economic circumstances that we face. And I think that all central bankers around the world are loyal to their mandate and observing the facts and analyzing the data as well as they can. This is what we've done in Europe. We have inflation coming down seriously. As I said, last reading 2.2%. Our projection for 25 is likely to be 2.1%. Inflation expectations are very anchored around the 2%, including in the medium term, and we have growth which is projected to be 0.98%, depending on whose projections you're looking at. The US is a different situation, and the impact of tariffs will be different on the two economies.
And in some corporate updates, OpenAI executives testify at Alphabet's antitrust trial in Washington, stating that the company would be interested in buying Google's Chrome if antitrust enforcers are successful in forcing the parent Alphabet to sell the popular web browser to restore competition in the search engine market. Remember, Google has not offered Chrome for sale, and Google breaking off Chrome was a remedy proposed by the US Department of Justice last year. However, the company is planning to appeal the same and the said ruling as well. Okay, and with that, we're absolutely out of time on this edition of Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18, leaving the markets at 24,247 levels, up almost 0.3% in trade as well. But that's all the time. So thank you so much for tuning in. Up next, you have Midcap Radar to take you through all the market action.